Hi everyone, Michelle here with Sew It Online, and today I'm going to show you a video on how to thread your vibrant serger. This is a baby lock serger. It is a manual setup, but it's easy to thread, so we're going to take it step by step and tell you a little bit about it as we go. So the first thing you need to do is gather. We're going to actually set up for a 4-thread overlock today, so get yourself 4 cones of thread. If you are just opening up your vibrant out of the box, you're going to notice that you actually will already have 4 spools of thread already on your machine. Now, we've gone through that thread already. It doesn't last you very long, but you do need to learn how to thread it. Now, some people just kind of tie on the other thread and run them through, but take some time to thread it. You'll be so happy that you did. So let's take a look of what some things that come with your serger. You are going to have kind of like a goodie bag. It's going to have some thread nets on them, some cone holders, probably a screwdriver to change your needles, and in your machine you'll have some goodies also. But look for this package. You're also going to have just basically a little reference guide. And this reference guide is kind of hard to see here, but in this reference guide, it's kind of like a brochure for baby lock. It tells you all the different, you can set up for a 4-thread, a 3-thread, or even a 2-thread stitch. This particular chart is also in your user manual. I recommend that you take this either to Staples or Kinko's or your office supply store, have them blow it up and put it on, like laminate it, so that you can see it a lot easier. It's going to tell you what to put your tensions on, what needles to put in, and your stitch width, your stitch length dial, what to put those knobs on so that you can get a good stitch right off the bat. But use this quick reference guide every time you thread your serger. So the first thing you're going to notice about the Vibrant is that it's got tension dials, okay? Again, this is a manual serger and you need to thread it in a particular order. Now the nice part, baby lock has come up. You're going to basically thread it from the right to the left. So we're going to do the lower looper, then the upper looper, then the right needle, then the left needle. When you look at this also, you're going to see you have some dials on the side and you have a dial on this side. Let's take a look at this one first. This one here is your stitch width knob. Now on your quick reference guide, it's going to tell you for a 4-thread overlock that they recommend putting the stitch width on 6. So we can just turn this dial and you're going to match it up right with this little dot right here. So I have it set on 6. On this side of the machine, let's turn this around, you're going to see that you have a hand wheel similar to a sewing machine, and it's also going to have a little arrow on it, and you're going to turn the dial toward you. This knob right here is going to be your stitch length knob. Now there's a little, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if you turn it the other way, there's actually a P and an R. So the P stands for a picot stitch and the R stands for a rolled hem stitch. So if you're doing any of those stitches, that's what you'll put it on, and your quick reference guide will tell you that. But for our stitch today, we're going to do, there's a little dot, see if you can see that. There's a little dot right by the 3. We're going to set the machine on that little dot. It's kind of like the go-to stitch length setting. Right below that is some embossed numbers with a little lever next to it. This is your differential feed. The differential feed is your different feed dogs that are underneath your presser foot. Now we'll go over that once we do in another video for your usage, but just so you know that this lever should be set on 1. The 1 is a neutral setting. That means both set of feed dogs that are underneath your presser foot are going to move at exactly the same distance. So make sure that this is set on 1. Let's turn the machine over here so you can see it. Now, one of the cool things about this machine is that it has this little fabric guide right here. So that fabric guide, when you start stitching, you'll be able to put your fabric on there. It's got a little wall for your fabric to run up against, and it'll guide your fabric underneath the presser foot and give you that, you know, cut off exactly what you need all the way along the edge of your fabric. Now remember, we have those tension dials. The quick reference guide recommends that you put everything on 4 when you set up for a 4-thread overlock. Now we're going to do that. We have them all set at 4. You can kind of see the little embossed notch on each of these here. Just set it on 4. And then under here you're going to see there's a little red dot here and a little orange dot here. And I'm just going to move to make sure that the 4 is directly underneath them. Now you can certainly change these knobs, but set the machine up for the guidelines that it says in the quick reference guide first. Then if you need to adjust things, just do one dial at a time and maybe only like maybe a quarter of a turn so you can see how it's changing. All right, what else do we need to look? We have 2 needles in the machine. They're right here, and it does come with a little tiny screwdriver so that you can replace those needles. These screws are very small, so make sure that you do kind of hold on to those needles when you are taking them out or putting them in. If you do have to take a needle out of the machine, keep it threaded. That way, when you take it out, if it does fall, it's already still has thread in it and it won't go down into your machine. But one of the nice features of the Vibrant is that the machine completely opens up. So if you do drop a needle, you're going to have access to it. So let's open up the doors here. This little lever right here slides over to the right, and then the door drops down. You have a nice compartment right here that holds a little cleaning tool, some extra needles, your screwdriver, and there's a little foam plate right there that actually holds your 2-thread stitch converter and one of your other stitch fingers. You also have a little pad right here. And this little pad right here is actually to take your needles out. If you go, say, for a 4-thread overlock that has 2 needles, and maybe you're going now to a rolled hem, it only has 1 needle in the machine, you can put that other needle right here and store it when you're not using it. There's a little lever right here. Let me turn the machine. This little lever right here, I'm going to push it down, and you're going to notice I can open up the machine all the way. So the nice part about this is even though it's a manually threaded machine, you have full access to all of the upper looper, lower looper, the right and the left needle. One of the things on this side I want you to take a look at is your blade. This is your blade right here. Okay, and there's actually another blade right next to it, and they work like a scissor action to cut the edges of your fabric. Now, right next to it is a stitch finger. The stitch finger comes out of the machine manually. It just pops right out. So that's your stitch finger. You have 2 different stitch fingers with the Vibrant. We're going to put this right back in because we're going to use that. And you'll see in your manual exactly where to put it back in so it's put in correctly. But I want to talk about this blade a little bit. This blade works, you can drop it down into the machine. And in order to do that, you have this little plunger right here. See how that rotates it? You can push it in and then just rotate that blade out of the way. We do want to cut fabric most of the time when you're working with the serger, so try and keep the blade up at all times. We're going to keep this open as we thread the machine, and you're going to notice that everything is color-coded. So when we thread the lower looper, we're going to follow the blue path. So we're going to go from here, and then there's another one. It's going to be right here, and then we're going to follow the blue. And we're going to actually thread the lower looper. And if you can see, I'm going to put my presser foot, leave it up here. This is your lower looper right here. And this is your upper looper, which is right here. Okay, now I'm going to thread the machine. I'm going to thread the lower looper first. If you can't see, just give me a second and I'll be able to show you the path on how it was threaded. But the first thing I want to do is make sure my presser foot lifter is in the back. I want to make sure it's in the up position so that my tension dials are open and letting my thread come through. So I'm going to take my thread and floss it. This is what they mean by flossing. And I want to make sure it's scooped underneath this back thread guide so it stays down. It's then going to go here. Okay. Then there's another blue one and it's right here. And again, I'll move out of the way here in a second. Then it's going to go to this one right here. And you can use tweezers, or you can use just kind of pull some tension on the thread just so it kind of goes into the guides. Now, one of the things, there is a little guide right here, and this is kind of hard to see, but because those doors can be opened all the way, you can see it and you have easy access to it. What I'm going to do is going to take that thread, and let's see if I can do this. There we go. I should have just made it easier for myself, right? So I turned the hand wheel toward me, and you can see where that guide is right here now. Let's see, we click it under there. There we go. So as you see how I have it, this is the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. Now, it's very important now that I bring this thread across, and I'm going to turn my hand wheel toward me again so that the lower looper, there's an eye of the lower looper right there. I want to thread that right now. So I'm going to use my scissors and give myself a good clip. I'm going to put my thread into the eye of that looper, and I'm going to take it up and over the upper looper. So if you can see, one of the most important things you can look at, this is the most difficult one to thread. You get this one and you're home free. But look at this. See how this runs right in that channel? That's what you want it to do. It rides right in the channel of the lower looper. Then it comes up and over the upper looper. So let's thread that upper looper. We're going to take the threads. Again, we're going to floss it and click it underneath the back guide. It's going to go here. Then our next one is green, which is going to be here. So let me get it under there. All right. Now, see where this green dot is right here? I'm just going to go right behind it. Okay? That's all I did was go right behind it. Now, just like the lower looper, the upper looper has an eye opening, and it's right here. Let me see if I can turn it so you can see it a little bit better. Let's see if we can. Let me put the foot down and see if that'll help you. Now we got a kind of a thing there. I'm going to thread this thread through the eye of the upper looper, and I'll show you how I take it straight back. Again, your tweezers that come are absolutely amazing. There we go. Now this is one of those other things, if you find that your presser foot is in the way, you can certainly take it out or take it off. And I'm just going to take that straight back. Now I do want to make sure that my thread path is smooth and it's not hooked on anything that it shouldn't be hooked on. So I have two threads that are going straight back. I'm going to put the presser foot up, and I can feel them both smoothly coming through the machine. All right, so let's take a look at these needles, right? So I'm going to turn the hand wheel so I get my needles all the way up. I'm going to take my thread here, and what I'm going to do is, so I noticed I did something here, and actually I'm kind of glad it happened. So when I was threading this, my threads switched places on me, and this is actually my upper looper thread. All I have to do is switch it with this one. So don't think that if something happens to your serger, you've got to stop all around and just start all over again and you get frustrated. You don't have to. Just stop and think where it's going to go, and all I did was move the threads away. I usually do one thread at a time. And so if you don't want to have them hanging, you know, like what I just did, you know, just take it off the spool, one spool at a time. All right, so we're going to bring this thread together. Let me move that one out of the way so I don't do that again. All right, so now that we have the right needle thread coming down, you're going to see there's a little prong here. So we need to go from the right, bring it down, over to the left, and then so it kind of makes a little loop. The illustration in your book works really well on how that's going to go. I have my threads, holding on to my threads, and I'm going to scoop it behind that tension disc, and this is how I'm going to floss this one. Once I have that, I can bring it down, and I'm going to bring it under this bar and up and around. Okay? And I want to show you something here. See how it comes across? It comes under here, over this one, over this one. It'll come down and go right into the needles. Okay, move my threads back. Again, I like to clip my threads on an angle, take my tweezers, and just thread the eye of the needle right away. One of the tips I just learned recently, you know how many of us like to lick the back of, or lick the thread and then before we put it in the eye of the needle? Well, someone said, don't do that. Just wet the back of the needle and it'll pull it right to the back. All right, there is one more guide that I want you to do. I find it a little bit easier to do once you have the needle threaded, and I just take this thread here and just scoop it right behind this upper guide right above the right needle. All right, we're going to do the left needle. Same thing, we're going to bring it over to the right, scoop it over to the left, up and around. Hold on to both edges of the thread, and I can feel my presser foot is down because I don't have some tension there. There we go. I want to be able to floss that through. Bring it down. This thread follows the exact same path that the right needle does. So I'm going to come under, over those two, and I'm going to thread the left needle. Let's see, here we go. I'm going to put the presser foot down just to give myself a little bit more room to thread that left needle. It's also a little bit easier when you're going straight on. There we go. Pull that straight back. Double check that all of your threads are through the path that they need to be. Make sure they're not hooked on anything. I have 4 threads straight back to the back of the machine. I'm going to put the presser foot up, and I like to just make sure everything is underneath the presser foot and straight back. Now that we have the machine threaded, we need to do a test stitch. So let's close this door up here. We're going to close this door up here. Okay, I've already set the different dials to where they need to go. So on any serger, I do like to grab onto the threads, and I like to put the presser foot down, but I like to turn the hand wheel a couple of times to make sure that my needles are not hitting anything. And I can actually see that the loops are already starting to form on the stitch fingers. So once I don't hear any clicking and I'm very confident that the needles are in the position that need to, I'm going to take my fabric, and I usually test with 2 pieces of fabric because that's what we're usually serging. So I'm going to put it underneath the presser foot, and you don't have to go all the way up to the needles. You just want to go up just to where the blade starts. So let's start this and see what kind of a stitch we got. Now, one of the things you do want to make sure of is that your presser foot is down when you start serging. it'll still surge and it'll still move, and the needles will go up and down even with the presser foot up. So make sure the presser foot is down. If you feel the need to kind of push that fabric in because it's not gathering, it's not bringing it in itself, then chances are your presser foot is up. Also, get to know the hum of your machine. And at the very end of this one, there's a little lever that's right here, okay? If you put this lever up, look how a little blade pops up on your machine. Then you can just cut your threads right like that and let go, release the lever right there. So we've got a stitch. It's a nice stitch on this side. We've got our 2 needle threads and our upper looper. And we've got our lower looper. Make sure you test your stitch before you start a project, preferably on the fabric that your project is gonna be, what you're using for your project. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna open up the machine, and so you can really see the path of the thread. Again, this is for a 4-thread overlock. Make sure that each one of these is following exactly the path that it should. And just keep practicing with it. If it doesn't seem quite right, then just try it again. But use this video to help you practice threading your vibrant serger. You're going to enjoy doing it with so many different projects. So enjoy your baby lock serger. And until next time, thank you.